In this video, I will going to discuss the lesson 6, which is the planning and economic development models. So under these lessons, we have three subtopics. First is the planning economic development, Israel, miracle in the desert, and Japan, model for the free developing world. So the objectives of this lesson are the following. So at the end of the lesson, you should be able to first generalize the need for planning and identify the different types of planning models. Second is to identify problems, requirements, and principles in developing planning and comprehend the effect of planning through models. In this video, I will only going to discuss the topic 1, planning economic development. I will upload another 2 videos in our Google Classroom separately, the topic 2 and topic 3. So resources are limited while human wants are unlimited. So in the first topic pa lang ng economic development, we already discussed about that, the scarcity. And under such situation, the problem is not only how to satisfy reasonable human wants, but also how to properly allocate existing scarce resources. There is a big problem, especially to the developing countries. As a result, for the developing countries, 2/3 of the peoples of the world live in absolute poverty. So this means they do not have enough food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. So in this topic, we will discuss the basic planning concept, models, strategies, and problems. Some of the planning concepts have been derived from a publication of the Planning Commission of Metro Manila Commission. So let's start with the need for planning. So the best possible economic goals have to be attained, like full employment, stable economy, satisfactory and balanced economic growth, economic freedom, and social justice. To achieve this, with the minimum cost and maximum results, planning is needed. However, planning is not only concerned with productivity, physical infrastructures, and similar material growth. It should be more concerned in the improving the quality of life of the masses. That should be the primary considerations of the government when they do planning. So planning is more needed in the developing countries because of the economic, social, and political problems in the developing countries are more serious. So such problems can only be reduced through intelligent, sincere, and systematic planning. The success of the program depends primarily on its actual implementation. Sino ang nag-i-implement ng planning? No other than the top government officials who are also the big landlords themselves. A democratic concept of planning is needed. This means the people are involved in solving their own problems. They know best the local situation and they know what the good are for them. Thus, they have the right to identify their problems, discuss their problems, plan the solution, and most especially implement their plans. Development programs depend on interrelated variables in the economy. So in formulating a development programs, its soundness is based on taking into consideration the relevant interrelationships. For example, a certain economic problem is related to social, cultural, or political factors. More specific example is the too many street children or the family living on the street. So paano siya isosolve ng government? To solve the economic problem, solutions or the results may be negative or a failure. A good solution to a problem should consider all the factors which cause the problem like economic, social, cultural, and political. So, this is a long-term problems of the Philippines, the street children, or a family living under the bridges or the street itself. So, paano siya sinusolusyonan? Actually, we have different organizations na ang sumusupport to reduce those problems. Kaya lang, pag tinanggal sila sa street, bumabalik pa rin naman sila sa street, di ba? So, interrelated yung problems natin in different sectors. Yung model is very needed natin, especially ano ba ang ginawa ng other countries to solve the same problems. So we can use that to solve also our problem. So a model is usually based on a past experience or it has been borrowed in other countries like similar conditions. Another example is the COVID-19. According to researches, it already happened from the past. So all the research and development programs, they find facts from the past and started formulating vaccines for COVID. Yun nga lang, it was nag-evolve yung virus. That's why hirap na hirap tayong sugpuin yung COVID-19. The efficacy of economic policies can be tested in two different ways through the use of model. So, ang una dyan is to determine the effects of a particular set of economic measures. Example is investment. Investment in a specific sector. So, given the measures and other data, the model is used to trace the effect of investment in that sector. For example, the investment of government into agricultural sector. Ano ba naging investment na ni government? They subsidize the fertilizers. So, what is the result? Yung investment ba nila is naging effective? Okay. The next one is contains a specific set of objectives such as increased income, employment, or production. So, yung measurement natin is na-attain ba yung specific set na objectives na sinet nila for that program or for that project. So we actually have different types of planning models. So first is the aggregate model. Ang aggregate model, it applies to the whole economy. So it deals with the investment, production, and consumption, and similar economic activities as single aggregates. So ito rin ay tinatawag na macro planning. So the aggregate model determines the possible growth rates in the national income of a country, allocates of the national product among public and private consumption, investment, and exports, the required volume of domestic savings, exports, and foreign financial assistance for the implementation of a given program. The another planning model is the sectoral model. So this refers to individual sectors of the economy. So it deals with individual projects or sectors like construction of roads, irrigation system, school facilities, etc. And this is also called project planning. So itong sector model naman, ang dinedetermine nito is the level of consumption and production by economic sector. Kunwari, if for agricultural sector lang, for industrial sector lang ba, for banking sector, or for mining. So, nakahiwa-hiwalay siya. So, alternative production, possibilities within individual production branches. So, usually, the aggregate models are actually summation or the totality of the sectoral model. Okay, we also have the inter-industry model. It actually concerned with the relationship of the productive factors of the economy with one another. Decisions are made on an industry and firm by firm basis. It is also called multi-sectoral planning. So, ang inter-industry model, ang dinidetermine naman nito is the demand for intermediate products and capital goods, including imports. And their solution, which provides a mutual, consistent set of production levels by economic sectors and imports for the whole economy. So that is the three types of a planning model. As we have mentioned, ang plans is nababaliwala if hindi siya nai-implement. So the primary consideration when we do planning is if this is implementable. If not, then we should not pursue the specific project or program. So the requirements of an implementable plans are the following. Major targets must be specified completely, sector by sector. The feasibility of such projects must be tested in both financial and physical terms. Targets must be stated in both capital and current terms. Activities of project and programs which are designed towards the attainment of a specific target must be specified. All major activities must have their time frames fully specified. Initial conditions in the economy which is presumed to prevail at the start of the planning period must be fully specified. The plan must be thoroughly tested for its input-output consistency. The plan include a time-based indication of the proposed allocation of financial, physical, and human resources. And lastly, the levels of demand for the major commodity groups should be reasonably consistent with the levels of supply from the physical production targets. So development planning or the development planning is not an easy task, especially when resources are scarce, like in the developing countries. And there are many competing demands for such resources. Although needs can be prioritized, the basic problem is the manner of organizing the resources for growth. And such problems also exist in the developed countries. The only difference is that there is a market and numerous institutions which can support the implementation of planning ideas in the rich countries. For the underdeveloped countries, these are the problems. So first is the lack of signaling system which a well-functioning market provides, lack of institutions which can crystallize ideas into realities, non-existence of a sufficient number of people which can take the place even of a crudely working price system. Basic technical information on agriculture is frequently not enough. Lack of competent development planners. Principal economy, which is agriculture, is not stable due to natural calamities and changing conditions in the world market for agricultural products. High government officials are reluctant to implement plans which adversely affect their vested interests, and planners are separated from the implementors. So those who are given the task of implementing a development plan should be directly involved in planning. In the less developed countries, there have been always a wide gap between planning and implementation. As we have mentioned earlier, mayroong instances na magkaiba si implementor, iba din si planner. So many plans have remained unimplemented, and there are also cases of implemented plans but they failed. If government development planner followed the basic principles of planning, failures would have been reasonably minimized. So there are some basic planning principles. So ito yung the following. Ito, planning must be realistic. So ibig sabihin, yung project or programs can be implemented with existing available resources. Planning must be based on the felt needs of the masses. So this is the real development. Yung fruits of economic development will be harvested by the people. Next is planning must be multi-sectoral. So no single problem is independent or isolated. It is affected by several factors. So dapat nakukonsider lahat ng factors na yun. So planning must be flexible. Kasi yung conditions and existing resources natin laging nagbabago. So therefore, adjustments have to be properly made. Next is planning must start with simple projects. So their requirement is a simple technology, simple skills, simple organizations, and a little financial resources. And planning must integrate the various project programs. In economic activities kasi, they are interlinked with one another. For instance, yung stimulating rice productivity. It is not enough to plan a more efficient method of production. It has to be integrated with financing, processing, and marketing processes or schemes. And the last one is planning must have the full support of top government officials. Since sila po ang implementors natin. The development plans depend on them. So these are the basic principles of planning. The next one is the 7 sins of development planners. So economic problems are not only created by economic conditions. They are also produced by non-economic factors. Na-discuss na natin yan in the first lesson pa lang, yung non-economic and economic factors. So, kagaya ng family ties, social customs, political conditions, and many more. So because of this, economic development planners should not only focus in the development models within the framework of economics. Kailangan din nilang i-consider yung non-economic factors. So, meron ngang 7 sins of planning. This is according to Professor Haq of Pakistan. The first sin is they only concerned only with numbers. They have the excessive controls, investment illusion, addiction to imported development plans, separation between planning and implementation, neglect of human resources, and growth without justice. We also have these principles of governance, and this is from the time of Ramos administration. Yung implementation ni Ramos, President Ramos, is guided by these 4 principles in the management of development process or the manner of implementing development activities. So devolution, meaning yung transfer of decision making to the lowest unit possible. So hindi lang nagde-decide is top the top organization or the top government, but included yung smallest unit natin. So the next one is the regulation or the removal of red tape and competition with the private sector. Next is decentralization, meaning provision of resources and services to the countryside. And the last one is democratization, the provision of equal benefits to everyone. In the time of Ramos then, nagkaroon siya ng vision for the Philippines 2000. There are 5 implementing mechanisms that operationalize the main and supporting strategies to attain Philippines 2000. So itong Philippines 2000, yan yung sinet na vision of President Vitel V. Ramos to reconcile the country with its promise that of entering industrial status with the new century. So yung first goal niya is to attain of national stability and unity. Second is the economic recovery. Third is the rapid development of energy power sector. Fourth is the environmental protection. And lastly, streamlining the bureaucracy. So the vision of President Fidel V. Ramos for the year 2000 is idealistic. So there is nothing wrong with such hopeful and bold vision of our country. But the main problem actually with the vision of President Ramos is its realization. Okay, so i-compare natin yung priority programs or the vision of Fidel V. Ramos for the year 2000 in the current administration. The Philippine Development Plan of Pangulong Duterte or President Duterte for the year 2017 to 2022. Action para sa ambisyon. The Duterte administration has set its target for the Philippine economic development. The current administration is specifically envisioned the following for the next 6 years. So ito sinet niya nung maupo siya as president. First is to be included in the upper middle income country with GDP growth of 7 to 8% and an increase of PCI from $3,500 to $5,000. Second is to have a lower poverty incidence in the rural areas with 10% decrease on poverty rate from 30% to 20%. Third is to have a high level of human development, which results to a decrease on unemployment rate from 5.5 to 3.25%. Anong strategies ang gagawin ni Pangulong Duterte to achieve those objectives? The 3 pillars of Duterte administration is about the malasakit, the pagbabago, and patuloy na pag-unlad. So in malasakit or enhancing the social fabrics, it includes the people-centered, clean and efficient governance, pursues swift and fair administration of justice, and to promote Philippine culture and values. While in pagbabago or the inequality of reducing transformation, this will expand economic opportunities, increase access to economic opportunities, reduce vulnerability of individuals, and accelerate human capital development. The last one is the patuloy na pag-unlad or increasing growth potential. Paano niya gagawin yan? Through the maximizing the demographic dividend, promoting technology adoption, and stimulating innovation. So these are the strategies of government ni Pangulong Duterte. So that is the topic 1, which is the planning, development, economy. But if you have any questions for this topic, please send your questions through my Gmail or in the Messenger. Thank you and stay safe, everyone.